All right, guys, good morning. Just wanted to give you a quick run over of the ESPN Fantasy app, just in case you haven't used it. I know a lot of you guys are new. They just redesigned the app this year, so they actually made a lot of things easier. If you see at the top in the middle, this is what the app looks like. It's ESPN Fantasy. It is not your normal ESPN app, or it's not inside of that app. It is a separate app. So go to your either Google Play Store or the Apple Store and find the ESPN Fantasy app. Download it. Log in with your normal login. So when you first open it up, it's going to give you all these. It's very busy, put it that way. The main thing you want to be concerned with is right in the middle where you got your teams. In my case, I have two different ESPN fantasy leagues, and if I swipe back and forth, I can see the two different teams. Just in the future, we've already done our drafts, but if you wanted to do a mock draft, right below there, you'll see the three: get a team, create a league, and mock draft. You can go in and do a mock draft if you wanted to. It helped me a lot this year and last year. Just getting an idea where players are going in general. I know a lot of times you get to the real draft and it just goes right out the window because people are taking the people they like rather than the rankings. Anyway, so if we go to our team here, you would click on My Team. That's going to take you into your team. This is my team here. So starting here on this screen, there's a lot of things you can do. If you did accidentally hit the wrong team, if you have more than one team, starting at the top, you have the name of your team, and there's a little drop-down arrow next to the name of your team. If you press that, you can switch to your other team or go back to the fantasy home. Or if you're doing any of the other challenges or pick'ems, you can select those as well. To the right of that, you'll see the little chat boxes. That's just for smack talk. If you want to post some smack talk to the player you're playing that week, or if you press the league button, whatever you say, everyone can see. Then you got your different tabs with the roster, matchup, players, and league. So starting with the roster tab, you have your team name. Right next to it on the, there's a little eye with a circle on it. It says team info. If you press that, you're going to see the name of your team and some stuff you probably don't care about. But if you press edit, that is where you can change your team name, which can come in handy. So usually under location, it'll say like team, and then the nickname, it'll say, your last name. You can change both of those. As you can see, the abbreviation is just to let everybody know who you are. You only have like 4 letters though. So you can hit save and save that. Go back there. Then you get to your edit lineup button. This is where you would change your players. Click edit lineup. Let's say I want to set someone. Let's say my flex. If I want to move Chris Carson out of the flex and put in Damian Williams, I would simply click the move button. And where do I want to move him? I want to move him here, which is where Damian Williams is. And it swaps those players out. And you hit save. So I'm going to switch those back for now. So you'll notice next to the players' names, you got starters. You have the player's opponent and the game time. Then you have their projections. These are very rarely right at the end of the day, but it gives you an idea of what ESPN thinks those guys are going to do on Sunday or Thursday, whenever their game is. The score obviously is blank, but after the game or as they play, that score will populate. Under the matchup stats with the little drop down button, this can come in handy because matchup is projections. If you go scoring, it'll actually show, what the player has scored, what they're averaging, their total points, and then the last game they played. Sometimes that can be helpful. When you're under the players tab, this is a lot more valuable. So you scroll down, you'll see your bench. That's mostly it on the roster screen. If you go to your matchup screen, it's going to show you who you're playing this week. And then, you'll see projections. Right now they're at 0, but come right before the first game of the year, they will go to whatever the projections total for each team are. Once again, they're not usually correct, so don't panic if you show that you're behind and go cut a player and grab another player. It's just a projection. You can scroll down and see. If you swipe over, you'll see everybody who's playing who and their projections. So you can see the rest of the league, and it'll cycle back around to your team. Okay, under Players tab, this is where you pick up guys off your waiver wire. So you got top overall, and there's right in the middle, it says all players. So I can click on all players. It's going to give me all the players. Once again, it's going to show their projections. They use like a ranking system, what they think is best. But if you click on the word PROJ, projections, it'll actually resort that by the highest projected points. And this is where the matchup stats and all that comes into play. Because at the top, if you click that and go to scoring, now it's going to show you how many points they've actually scored this year. So, come week 5 or 6, you might want to say, okay, well, who's the highest scoring player that's left? And it'll show you their last game. And you just have to be careful. You'll have players who score 30 points in one game and then score 3 points in the next 2 games. And they'll be leading the scoring, but it was really just a one-game outlier in which they caught a bunch of touchdowns. So you really have to take all these scores with a grain of salt. If you go back to matchup stats, once again, it shows you what they're projected for that week. If we go back, that was a top overall, but say you just want to look at quarterbacks, you can go to all quarterbacks, and it will tell you the same thing. You can go back, then you got running backs, wide receivers, tight end, kickers, defense. If you, let's say you want another running back, and you sort it by projections. Okay, Gio Bernard, let's say, I want to pick him up. What you'll do is click on his name. His stats are going to pop up along with an outlook and some news. The outlook's going to give you just what it says, a general outlook of what he's been doing lately. If you scroll down to news, it's going to give you the latest news of what's going on with him. In case you missed it, they'll give you a little spin. If you go to all news, it's going to give you the dates and times of those latest news blurbs, and you can scroll through those and get an idea of what's been going on with that player recently and what the experts expect him to do. You can add this player to your watch list if you're not quite ready to get him, but let's say you want to get this player. Then you would hit the claim button. It's going to pop up, and in order to claim a player, you have to drop someone. So you go to your bench, figure out who you want to drop, select drop, you hit save, and that will put you in. Now, if waivers have already cleared, which happens on Wednesday morning, once the waivers are cleared, then everyone's a free agent, and you can pick them up immediately without going through waivers. Anytime a player gets cut, even if it's after Wednesday, say you cut a player on Thursday, there's still that 2-day waiting period. He cannot be claimed until his waiver period is up. Even if you cut the player, oops, I cut the wrong player, be very careful with that, because they will go through waivers and you will just be shit out of luck. So I'm going to cancel this. I'm not actually going to do it. One thing, if you go back into the player news, Game Log is another tool that's very helpful. It's in blue right in the middle. So you click on 2018 Game Log. This is going to show you what he did every week last year. His total points. This is all his rushing yards because he's a running back. But if you click the receiving tab at the top, now it'll show you his receiving stats in those games. And the miscellaneous TDs is stuff like fumbles, blocks, interceptions, stuff like that. You rarely see any points there. But go back to rushing. You'll see week 4 against Atlanta, wow, he had 25.6 points. The week before that, he had 19.6. And then he's got a bunch of zeros. So, what you look for in fantasy is consistency. So just wanted to show that to you guys. So we're going to close that out. Go back to this screen. The last tab is going to be the league tab. This has a lot of info on it. Has your scoreboard. That's going to show the current week's matchups and what they're projected, how many guys have played, how many guys haven't played. Just like you'd see a scoreboard on ESPN, that's what it's intended to be. Standings is where you can see the record, the win-loss percentage. If you scroll over, you'll see the points for, points against, and the win streak. Basically, in this league, you got your record, and then if you have a tied record, that goes to points scored, which would be points for. So after week 1, we're going to have 6 guys that are 1-0 and 6 guys that are 0-1. The way they'll determine those rankings for the tied scores will be by fantasy points. So whoever won and scored the most points that week will be in first place. Schedule playoff bracket. I'm going to come back to the other one. Just shows you your schedule, kind of give you a preview of who you're going to play and when, what week. Because we're doing the 2-week playoff system, we only have 12 weeks instead of 14 like most teams would have to get into the playoffs. So be aware of that. This playoff bracket's going to be empty, but you can get an idea once it's filled how it's going to work. Message board and league management pool. This isn't something that we use a lot, but it's on there. You can post a message. You can. I can create a poll as a league manager. It's not something we do a lot. Recent activity is a good tab because it's gonna right now just show all the settings we changed for the draft. But once a player gets cut or added, the only place you're going to see that is in recent activity. So if I cut Christian McCaffrey because, I don't like his face, then it's going to show up on here. Joey cut Christian McCaffrey and added this other player. That's where you'll see that. So you'll really want to check that a lot, especially if you see a player that you may want to pick up on waivers. The waiver order. Before we did the draft last night, because it was an offline draft, I should have went in and re-edited the waiver order position and the to match the draft, and I forgot to do that. I apologize for that. It's really not a big deal, honestly, before the season, because you rarely have any waiver fights, two people trying to claim the same player. Players should be off waiver in about 2 days, by Monday. They'll all be free agents, and then it'll be whoever picks them up first. The waiver is only for 2 days, just like in the real NFL. After that, they're a free agent. So once the season starts, the first game is played, and for the rest of the season, the waiver order will go by record. So if you're in last place after week 1, you will have first waiver priority. If you're in first place, you're going to have the last priority, and but that's not permanent. If you use your first place waiver priority to pick up a player, you then drop to the bottom, and second place moves up to first place. You don't just get first pick every time. So, and that, like I said, that will change week to week. League info gives you the name of the teams, gives you the roster positions that we're starting, and gives you the scoring for the league. So, and of course, I have league manager tools because I'm the commissioner. The last one I skipped over, I'm going to go back to, is final standing projections. This is something that ESPN added recently this year when they redid the app. And basically, it's looking at how you were on draft day compared to how your team stacks up now. Once again, it's completely based off projections for now until the season starts. And it's just when players move up or move down or get hurt. If one of your players gets hurt tomorrow, then obviously your team is going to fall. And you'll see how it moved up or down from the green and red arrows. If it's in a red circle, that means you were number 1. And then if it moved down, or to the left, I should say, that's where you currently are. Same thing if it's in green circle but moved to the right and turned solid, that's where you were. If you look at my team, I was in 4th and I went to number 1. Normally these don't show any movement directly after the draft. The only reason it did is because of the timing of us putting in the teams. It was late, toward midnight. I started it. I stopped, drove home, and finished it. It was, and I think their time stopped and switched over to what they call a new day, and that's why it shows movement. In the other league I did, it didn't show any movement after the first day. Everyone just had their projections. Then the second day, it showed a little movement as people rearranged their rosters. Like I said, it's really just based off of their ESPN rankings and how many players you got that they had higher ranked. If you believe that ESPN had somebody ranked too high, so you grabbed someone that was lower, on this screen they're going to show that you were, moved down or not as good, but that just means that they disagree with you. It's no big deal. So right after the draft, after putting all this stuff in, they do have me as number 1. They liked my draft. And then you see Jeff, then Bobby, let's see, and so on. You can read the teams and see. So I think that's it. Should get a good start on how to use this app. Sorry it's too long and for the rambling, but hopefully it'll help you guys out, and looking forward to the season.